Welcome to Move Your Mind. My name's Nick Brax, and this is a podcast where we have real conversations with real people and give real advice. Are you at your wit's end, feeling like you're trapped on a perpetual hamster wheel of chaos and confusion? The good news is change is possible. In fact, it's probable when you decide to choose yourself first and step into the life that's waiting for you. We all have our own story, and although different, we're actually more alike than we give ourselves credit for. All of us have experienced pain, and most of us have had some form of trauma in our lives. Feeling unheard for most of her life, Patricia courageously shares her story of how she was able to navigate a life of mental abandonment, abuse and trauma, and ultimately find her power and worth in order to create a new story. Thank you for supporting Move Your Mind. If you'd like to learn more, you can go to moveyourmind.me or purchase the Move Your Mind book at nickbrax.com/book. Patricia, thank you so much for making the time to talk to me. I've been coordinating this with you while I was in New York. I was just saying to you before we started that it's been very confusing because I'm back in the future right now in Australia, and my calendar's all over the place because it's got slots of time booked while I was over there. But anyway, I'm glad we get to do this, and yeah, thank you again for making the time.
Oh, no worries. Thanks for the opportunity. It's always fun to figure out, okay, so it's 3:00 here, it's 10:00 there. And it's like, now what time is it? Just to make sure I don't mess up. But apparently I'm in the past right now for you. So it's all good.
You're in the past, and yeah, exactly. So it's all good. And I've been sort of living two lives for the last 3 years between America and here, and sometimes I'm in the past, sometimes the future, a lot of the time both, and coordinating. So anyway, that's a whole nother story, and I probably need help with my mental health for coordinating all of that because you're living double lives. But anyway,
we all need a little
I'm glad
help
we're
with
here.
that, I think, no matter what.
I think we all need help. So hopefully you can tell me how we can all get help. I need help. Well, I'm sure everyone does.
Absolutely. Everybody does. It's so interesting. We kind of giggle about that a bit, right? But in reality, we all need mind fitness all the time. We're
Yep.
constantly, fitting our body and working out and walking and all this, but we kind of forget to take care of this. And this actually works everything else. So it's
Yes.
really vital to really have the mind fitness that, to have the best life you can possibly have. And, it's interesting, we all learn these things through different stages of our lives, right? We don't just get, I wish we could just be born and everything just worked out perfectly, but everybody has stories. And sometimes they think that they can't ever change because their story is too traumatic, or their story is too much, or it's just way too hard to change. But I'm just here to tell anybody that if you're willing and wanting and willing to do a little work, it's worth every bit of it. So, doing that extra change. So,
Absolutely. And no, it's so true. And, stories are so interesting because we tell ourselves all of these different stories, often negative ones that get implanted there, but we can also change that with a positive story. And in the same way, we can really feed ourselves positive thinking to help us with whatever path we're going on. And we just, like you said, we're not taught this mental fitness. We're taught physical fitness. We're taught so many other things. And the thing I'm always baffled by is how on earth are we, I mean, it's getting a little bit better, but why the hell are we not taught this in school? Why is this not a core part of curriculum? Why is this not the most important thing that we're in the whole world that we're taught?
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, honestly, I wish if I had known in school to be taught, just, if not only just being taught mental fitness or mind fitness, but just being taught that it's okay to be vulnerable in a lot of ways. Because it's the problem is that when you're young and your kids, there's so many, there's so many peers around you, and you're comparing yourself to everything, and you're growing, and you're learning what you live, which is also very difficult at times too, right? You have to, you're learning what you live as you grow up. But you're right. If this would be just a subject or even an elective in school, even in high school, it would be beneficial, because there's so much trauma that we have as children, because everybody has some kind of trauma. They're all going to some kind of therapist, or should be, or their best girlfriend or their best person to talk to, because they need to talk it out, you might say. But if we just had that as an elective, we could actually learn to really work learn how our bodies work, learn how our minds works, and so we can have a better future, you might say. And it's something that's so vitally important, that I wish we could have done it in school. So maybe that's something we need to work on. Okay, Nick?
Well, that's my mission. So why don't we team up and let's combine resources and just rewire the whole schooling system.
I
Let's
think
change
that's a
it.
brilliant idea, actually. I think it's a brilliant idea because, we wouldn't have so much mental fatigue and mental illness and mental thing if we could, line a lot of this stuff up when we're younger. As I mentioned before,
Hmm.
we learn what we live, right? And it's just like my story. I come from an alcoholic mom and a father that was pretty much mentally abandoned me. So I kind of grew up on my own. And so there was no inspiration, no encouragement, no anything. And so when you hit the teenage years and your young adult years, you're like, where do I go? I don't have the tools. So the kids and young adults need to be taught the tools. So at least they have something in their tool belt when they get to their 20s and something comes up, you can go, oh, that's how I can maybe learn not to think that way. Or these people aren't worried about me. I just need to worry about
Hmm.
myself and love who I am and not compare myself to everybody. So we need those tools. Otherwise, you have mental breakdowns. You have physical breakdowns sometimes. You have different types of mental what breakdowns, I guess, or people just go through these traumas or depression. And I'm not saying that there's obviously some depressions and some things that are chemical, but a lot of times they're within ourselves. And if we could have the tools to learn that, because I wish I would have had those, because it took me till I was almost 57 years of age to actually, when I was broken, to actually make a change. Because you're on that hamster wheel, right, of
Hmm.
life, and you just don't know how to get off of it, especially these days with social media and everything. And so you just keep repeating and repeating the same things. And what happens when you repeat the same thing over and over? You get the same result. So it's
Absolutely.
learning. Yeah. So it's learning to have those tools to move forward. And so I really, and I talk about this again with you, Nick, because I totally agree with you. I wish I would have had those tools when I was growing up, because it probably would have, it's twofold. It might have saved me from a lot of heartache, but on the other side of it, I've also learned a lot from it. So I don't want to let that story be, a bad thing. That story now is who I am, and now how I teach other people to be more confident and more having more self-worth and building their own self-esteem so that they can be confident in moving forward in their lives.
There's so much in what you just said there, and yeah, with every part of it, I agree, and I think there's so many interesting points in the fact, like what you said, even when we sort of reflect on it, we could think, oh my god, and I've thought about that same thing. And I'm still very much on the journey and got so much that I need to keep working on. But you look back and you think, if only I knew this, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, imagine where I could be now and how things could have changed. But I think we're sort of a sum of all of the experiences, and some of these negative experiences that we have lead to the positive, the path that we're on. We wouldn't end up on that path
Yeah.
if that didn't happen. So I think it's important to, I mean, obviously not to seek out those negative experiences, but to be accepting of them, but then
Hmm.
also not be stuck in them and try and look at how can I move from here to then move forward to find that healthier path and use this on the journey. But I think, regret is something that we should try and not live in, because we can't change the past and everything happens for a reason. But what we should
Hmm.
always be thinking is how do we move forward? And, the tools you're talking about is just such a critical thing. It's why I'm doing what I do with Move Your Mind. And because I mean, I've seen so many therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, and it's all important. But for me, it's really been, okay, but what can I practically do? I've got a good understanding of this stuff now, but I don't know what
Right.
to do, on a day to day basis. That was what I was struggling with. And then I had to learn through trial and error. And that's why I want to interview, people like yourself to learn from so many people. What are the things we can do? How can we learn to make these changes in day to day life to help ourselves? How can we empower ourselves?
Yeah, and here's the thing, though. I'm going to agree with what you said, because we do have to learn from the negatives, because
Mm,
without negatives, we we don't learn. because you got to, it's like you have black, you got to have white. If you have good, you have bad. You got to have something to compare it to a lot of times. So if everything was the same, then it'd be incomparable. So we couldn't see what the future could be or what we could possibly be. But one thing I will tell you, the journey never ends. The journey never ends. The growth never ends. In fact, if the growth and the journey of my mind expanding and growing, then that's probably the last day I'm here on this earth. I won't make it to the future, because to me, that's what makes us move forward, is growing and learning and making, and because that's what makes your mind grow, because when you're constantly learning, then your brain waves are constantly recreating and learning new things, because that's critically important also. So it really is important to remember what the past is. Don't dwell on the past. Learn to forgive the past. Learn to forgive yourself, so that you can move forward in the present and in the future, and just learning from the lessons. And even if you make those mistakes again, it's okay. Maybe it was just something slightly different. I always like to look at things as, okay, as pivoting and shifting somehow. So sometime, okay, I didn't quite learn my lessons that time. I did this similar thing. I did tweak it a bit, but maybe not enough, and then it's just continually growing to make whatever that is better. I mean, every day I'm constantly looking at myself and going, okay, what can I acknowledge today? What can I acknowledge? Did I do anything? Was I judgmental? Did I have a bad tone with people? You have to acknowledge those things in order to grow in the future. So I find that for a lot of people, and maybe a lot of your listeners, is you have to stop and pause first. And when you can stop and pause and get off that hamster wheel and get off the monkey chatter, that's when you can start to really listen to you within. And that's when you start the growth, as far as mentally and physically. But without doing that, you're just constantly on this hamster wheel. And that's why you find so many people go, I just don't have time. I can't do it. I have too much going on. They absolutely have to prioritize that. And even I tell clients of mine, take 2 minutes, go to the bathroom, close the door, do whatever you can just to get out of the chatter. So instead of hearing everything else, you can listen to who you are. And so you can focus. And that's what moves us forward. And that's what keeps us growing. And I still do that to this day. I even say to myself also, did I do something that I need to forgive myself for? Did I do something? Yeah. Did I do something to Nick that I need to forgive myself for? Anything. I like to look at things daily to see how I can be better and change. And and then I also think about the mindset. Was my mindset positive today? Or did I have some kind of a negative flare? And if I did, why? What triggered that? So it's really learning and being honest with who you are. And not trying to say, oh, I don't do anything wrong. I'm good. Everything's fine. That was not a problem. We have to learn to say, you know what? Could have been a little bit better at that. Maybe you could have been a little bit nicer. So you really have to own your truth. You have to own your truth in order to move forward in this world.
Well, we're all human. We're all vulnerable. We're all going to make mistakes forever. That's like, and if you're in denial of that, you're in denial of your humanity. So it's a good thing, a beautiful thing about humanity. But and what you're saying there, I think, so important and so relevant for this, more relevant than ever in this day and age. With we're sort of taught and conditioned that it's about just getting to this point and then we'll be okay, and acquiring this, and it's just the most. And I battle with that daily. I'm trying to remind myself to go back to, hang on, what are my values? What are the things that I want to do daily that make me feel good? And when I got into acting, that's what I learned. I got taught this isn't about an end goal. It's about just creating and doing that forever. It's not about competing or achieving or anything. And that's why I enjoy that pursuit so much, because it's this personal creative pursuit where you're not thinking about any of these end goals. And that's when you feel so at peace and fulfilled. And it's just a horrible feeling when you're feeling like all this conditional thinking, and I need to reach this to be okay, and I need to compete with this person or do this. And like you said, that's when you get so full in your day that you don't have any time to just think about your needs. And it's like, well, if we can't enjoy the daily process or do things that make us feel good and live in line with ourselves, then what's the point? Because that's all we ever have.
Exactly. We have to really stop and think, am I being happy within? Am I happy? And you can't fake it. You can't like, oh, I'm happy. You have to really go deep into it. It's kind of like when people say, oh, I'm so grateful. I actually call people out on that. I'm like, but are you really grateful? Are you just using the word? Because now that's a very common word now. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for that. I'm so blessed. But are
It's
you
like toxic
really?
positivity almost.
Yeah, exactly. And that's fine. But are you grateful for that you actually have a roof over your head right now? Are you grateful that you have food to eat? Because somebody else probably doesn't have that. Are you happy and you get to go to work? Because how many people say, oh, I have to go to work. Oh, I have to do this. I got to do this. And really, in reality, it's like, I get to go to work. I get to do these things because so many other people don't get to. And what you mentioned earlier about is never having an end game. It's like people who say, as soon as I buy that 2022 Lexus, I am going to be so happy. And then you get that 2022 Lexus and you're like, you're happy for a week, maybe 2 weeks, even, but then it's like, well, what's next? What's next? And that is just, that's not happiness. That's, that's just,
It's a
something
drug, basically. It's another form of, it's a version of cocaine, really, a healthier version of cocaine.
It's an addiction. It's an addiction to material things. And I'm, trust me, I have no problem with material things. Okay. That's fine. But it's like the comforts, if you want the comforts, is fine. But does it really make you happy? Now, having a Lexus, maybe a sports car makes you happy and this and that, but you have to have every toy in the book. Because sometimes I when I was in real estate, I used to go to people's houses and I would see all these toys. And nobody had played or done anything with these toys for years, you could tell, but they had everything, that the newest form of toy that they could possibly have. And I would ask them about them, like, yeah, I really wanted that. And gosh, now I haven't used it for 5 years. So, it's so interesting how people think. And if they can just stop and say, why do I think that way? Why do I need that to make me happy? Or does it really make me happy? And that's why the stepping off the hamster wheel is critical in order to get to know who you are, because sometimes you find out like, well, I would like to have that, but that's not gonna make me happy necessarily, and then just finding out what does, does just being safe make you happy? Does being just financially secure make you happy? And most people want to be financially secure and feel safe, and that makes that may be all they need. But when you go into yourself, that's where it becomes liberating. And I think that's what's important for people to understand, that because, you hear everybody talk about, oh, self-love and, you got to love yourself and all that stuff. And, there's a lot of cliches out there, which is true, but you want to do it for all the right reasons. You want to do it because you want to enjoy your life better. You want to feel, I like to say, when I go to bed at night, I want to just feel at peace. I want to feel peaceful. That's what makes me happy. So when I go to bed and I've gone through all my little list of, what I do good, bad, or whatever, and what can I improve on? And then I go to sleep and I'm like, I did the best I could do today. Tomorrow, we'll try it have another day, and you move forward into certain things you want to do. But that, for I think most people and a lot of the clients, they really just want to feel peace within. That's happiness.
And exactly, that's what happiness is. And why wouldn't you want to feel that? It's just that it's not no one's fault. It's like everything you said, we haven't been taught how to do this. The things we've actually been taught are things that are counterproductive to doing that. They're things that, we don't need or don't feel like we need. And on the other flip side, because of, again, the world we live in with social media, mass media consumption, etc., it's sort of like, okay, maybe being at peace or being a mindfulness teacher or doing this can be the next thing I can use to try and justify myself. And I'm going to, spruik to the world that I'm doing this thing, when you're not actually living those values, or you don't actually care about it. It's about, it's that, like you said, that toxic positivity thing of, no, I'm telling myself I'm okay, I'm doing all these things, when you're actually not. So it's really finding that internally within yourself and taking the time to pause. And I think that's why people are scared to do it, because it is scary if you haven't done it, to be alone with your thoughts and really acknowledge that stuff. And we need to acknowledge, yes, it will be scary, but
Yes.
it's so important to do it. We need to do it. You can't,
Yes.
like, it's just, you can't grow if you don't have time. I do the opposite. I'm like, I get paranoid if I've got too many things filling up my week, because I need that time alone to just process things and think, hang on, am I happy with what I'm doing here? Do I want to
Yes.
change this? Do I want to change that? So, and I was talking to a friend yesterday, actually. This week I've got a lot of sort of social things on, and I was saying, I'm like, I don't even know how I'm going to get through this week with all these things. How the hell do people get through life when they're filling up every waking second with things? And like, I'd go crazy. I don't know how they do it.
Well, they're distracting themselves. Most
Yeah.
people fill their calendars up and fill, and they go and see their friends, because if there's ever a chance that there might be alone with themselves, they wouldn't know. They don't know what to do, and it is difficult. You're on the journey, but for people who are starting the journey, because that's where it's the hardest. And I've been there. I get it, because I filled up my life with anything that I could possibly avoid, have avoidance of actually having to speak to myself, and because I was scared what I might find out, and because I was scared that I was going to find out that I was human, you know, that I was flawed, because we all want to perceive ourselves as not negative, or that we're not flawed, even though intellectually we know we are, but emotionally we don't want to believe it. It's like that's why people say, "Oh, I wouldn't do that. I couldn't do that." And your friends looking at you like, "You just did it." So we don't have our own consciousness of our own self to be able to stop and feel it. But when you do, and you don't have to do it like I did. I actually, one night I said, I have to make a change. I have to make a change. I just can't do this any longer. I couldn't be on that hamster wheel any longer. And for me, it was I didn't have the self-esteem, nor did I have the self-worth. I mean, a lot of that plays into that. So I knew I had to build back my own personal confidence. And that started with um, realizing and being able to say out loud that I'm flawed. I've made mistakes. I'm in debt, $140,000. You have to accept it, instead of, taking those envelopes and pushing them on the side and under the bed. You have to accept the negatives. And then it's pretty soon, though, once you let it out, it's like when you have a secret and you let it out finally. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, does that feel good? Same thing when you do it with yourself. And what the beauty of it is you can do it with only yourself, and nobody has to even be around to listen to you, you know.
Yeah.
But if you can
Yeah.
do it on your own and just feel it, and you're going to cry, you're going to be pissed off at yourself, you're going to be mad that, I can't believe I was like that, that I was judgmental, that I got myself in debt, that I've been divorced twice, that, I'm failing at relationships. You have to feel it and get in your own truth to realize maybe I played a part in some of this. And when
Yeah.
you finally acknowledge that, you're like, wow, okay, now I played a part. That means I've got to play a part, get myself out of it. And
There's such a liberation in that.
it's a
There
yeah,
is.
absolutely. And then it keeps on going, because pretty soon it's almost like once you start something, it's like any kind of addiction. It's in some ways, you want to keep liberating yourself. You want to keep growing. You want to keep like, wow, that felt really good. How can I get my mind even better? So I really practiced building my own self up and celebrating myself for also the good things that I do. And it did, because
Yeah.
you also have to celebrate those two. You have to bring up your own confidence, because the more you can bring your confidence up to a level, that's when you can feel like you can step out, just out of that comfort zone just a little bit more, because it's getting that yourself out of that comfort zone that is hard sometimes, because people are like, ooh, I don't want to do that. That might feel funny, but again, intellectually, they know they should, but that safety of that comfort zone, even though it's negative and a hamster wheel, it's just, I think I'll just go back to that hamster wheel. I don't have to move anything around, but so I just want people to know that it's okay to feel that way. It's okay to feel that way, but start someplace, and so that you can move forward, because on the other side of that zone is a beautiful place, and it keeps growing and gets better and better, and you feel so much more peaceful, and you start enjoying life is what you should be doing, because too many people are letting life live them, and they're not living life, they're letting life live them.
And life's short. If you actually sit there and think about, how the length of time we have, it seems crazy to spend all of this time doing things we don't want to do, beating ourselves up, telling ourselves we can't do things, preventing ourselves from being honest and doing what we want to do, because we do have a short amount of time here. So why not use it, for what we want, even if that is scary? And we, like you're saying, we get so, even when things are so painful for us, that becomes the comfort zone, and we're so desperately seeking that comfort that we stay in those bad patterns. But I think, like what you were saying, really for me, what came to mind is just being brutally honest is really one of the most important things. Brutally honest with yourself about, okay, yeah, what do I really want? Okay, I'm going to be brutally honest that I've got to acknowledge that and I've got to pursue it. What am I doing badly? What are my flaws? Let's be really honest about that and admit, okay, you know what? I fucked up with this thing, or I'm struggling with this, or whatever it is. But when you do that, it is like what you said before, when you acknowledge it or even say it to other people, it's so liberating. It's like, oh, I don't have to feel shame and guilt anymore about all these things that I've been told or made to feel like I should. Who gives a shit? I'm admitting it. No one can have a go at you. And that's when I first got into public speaking, that was a technique I used, because I was so shy. I had no self-esteem, and I'd be standing on stage trembling. Sometimes couldn't get the words out, and I would just say it at the beginning. I'd say, look, I apologize, and make a joke about it, be self-deprecating. I apologize if you can't understand what I'm saying. I'm terrified right now. I'm going to do my best. Just bear with me. And as soon as you say that, you sort of, you've let go of everything, and you're like, it doesn't matter now. It's like, it's okay. I've given myself permission to go and do it. Thank you so much for supporting Move Your Mind. We're expanding the offerings of the organization, and we're tailoring everything we do to suit you guys and to try and answer to all of your needs and the questions that you send in. The book is available globally. You can find all of the links at nickbracks.com/book. And we've just released the Move Your Mind community. We've currently got a men's community group, a women's community group, a general group. We're going to be loading up other groups, and you can find all of the links at moveyourmind.me. This group's been created based on the needs of what we've heard and learnt throughout running Move Your Mind. And we have live events, we've got courses, we've got huge amounts of value, the ability to share information, share ideas, work in groups together to grow and share your learnings, to learn about different topics. You get email reminders. There's a whole lot of features in there. We're constantly updating it, and we're so excited to share it with you. You can find all of the information about it at moveyourmind.me.
Exactly. You released yourself from all that pain that you're holding on to, that, it's one thing to have butterflies, but you're everything else. I love the fact that you go up on stage and it's like, well, I'm scared shitless or something like this, so bear with me if I fumble, mumble, and everything else, because then, I believe that when you release that, people all of a sudden realize, wow, thank God Nick is human. Thank God he's a normal guy. He's actually not talking down to us. He's talking with us, because I'm scared, what he's going to say. So I think that the approach really opens up to other people too, so that they can release their pain a lot of times. Because I can't tell you how many times it's like, oh my God, I'm so glad you said that. I was thinking it, but I didn't say it. And so sometimes people are just waiting for that other person to step up and have maybe that extra confidence than they did. But then that turns around and it's like, gosh, you just gave me a little confidence in my own self. So, it's so important to release that pain, but yet feel that it's okay to be flawed. It's okay. We're all perfectly flawed. And that's what's so brilliant about being human, is that we are flawed. And the other thing is, we're talking about, what you want to do, and what when you say, okay, I want to do this today. I want to, I'm not good at this, but I want to move forward because this is what I want to pursue, or whatever. Everybody has a unique gift. Nobody is like you. We all have different imprints. We all have different minds. Even though we think everybody's doing the same thing we're doing, know because you're saying it differently. I mean, there's
Mhm.
tons of confidence coaches. There's tons of coaches out there, but there's only me. There's only one Patricia Love, and I won't make everybody happy, but there's a lot of people that they'll resonate with me because they won't resonate with Tony Robbins say. So you
Yep.
just don't know. So you have to realize that you are unique, you are special, and it actually the world is waiting for your gifts because you could change somebody's life, whether
I
that's
think
tech.
that's an incredibly
Yeah,
important point.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Sorry, I
and it's
cut
like
you
it's
off
like
there. Yeah.
no, no, it's okay. It's like anybody that's in tech or something like that. These people always think, well, that's already been invented. Yeah, but you just tweak
Mhm.
it from your own mind, and now you got something brand new. So the same thing with coaching or anything in life. Do what makes you happy. Do what you love so much that you can't wait to get up in the morning. I love getting up in the morning because everything is I'm doing I enjoy.
I, I
So
I I love that. I love it. Yeah, I love what you're saying. It's so relevant and so important. And I know I'm just sitting there listening, thinking, God, it's helping me hearing you say that as well because if like you're saying, we can get in our own head and think, why do this though? Because there's all these, and we can see the examples everywhere of all these people that are excelling in these fields. Doing a podcast when I was starting this, and even sometimes now, I'm thinking, but there's so many podcasts out there. There's all these people having success. How am I going to compete with that when there's so much noise everywhere? But you've got to remind yourself that no, there is room for everyone, and
right.
I've got my own unique message and my own unique way of doing it. And if we didn't think like that, no one would do anything. So,
Right.
we got the
Uh,
cat
oh,
coming in
I'm
there.
sorry.
That's cute.
That's my
Um,
producer.
that's your producer. Yes, it's a very cute producer you've got there. Um, so yeah, I love that point. I think it's just so important. So yeah,
Yeah,
thank
it
you for
really
sharing
is.
that
And
one.
yeah, comparing ourselves to others is useless and wasteful. It's time and energy away from what you can be doing. And it's uh I know that I just get so excited when I see people finally say to themselves, I can do that. I think I can do it
Mm,
even better. Go for it. And it's like your
yeah.
podcast. It's like um there's lots of podcasts, but they're not just you. And you bring something special to it. You bring something unique to it. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to be on your podcast because I could see a uniqueness already.
Well, I appreciate that and appreciate being able to talk to you and learn about your uniqueness and all of the different things you're doing. Uh, so yeah, yeah. Sorry. I was just going to say we sort of have 5 questions that we finish every episode up with.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
so I'll jump into those. I mean, I'd
Okay.
love to. There's so many. I think I could talk to you for hours about all of this. There's just so many interesting things to delve into. We might have to do a round two. Um,
Sounds good. I'm
but
in.
yes, please. And also talk about how we can go and rejig the whole schooling system. I
Love
think
to
would
do
be
that.
another
Let
one.
me know. We'll change the world, man. We'll change the world.
Exactly. Let's do it. So these 5 questions, these can be whatever comes to mind, but we sort of finish every episode with them. So the
Okay.
first one is, the first one's what did you like most about your childhood?
Oh, that's a good question.
Actually, no,
uh
we didn't get to delve, but yeah, it sounds like you had a lot of ups
Interesting
and
one.
downs
I
from
had
what
an
you were
interesting
saying.
what I
Interesting one.
Yeah, well, I because I grew up on my own, I have to say I actually loved being by myself because I was by myself a lot.
Hmm.
Because I didn't have the guidance of any parents, and they pretty much kind of said, "Hey, go play with so and so, go play with so and so." So there was a lot of freedom, and at the
Mm,
time, I really liked that. Okay, and
mm,
so
mm.
as I grew older, I thought, "Oh, that probably wasn't the best thing to have as a child, as much freedom as I did." But I remember at the time, it was like the best thing ever to have all this freedom. I just had to correct it as I got older.
Right. Yep. 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 Definitely. Yeah, exactly. And from what you were saying, there were sort of some things you had to, some difficult, traumatic things you had to undo from your childhood as well. I
Right,
guess from what you were sharing.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
which is a process for all of us. That's a sort of never ending process.
Yeah, it's a totally never ending process because what you learn in your childhood is it's what triggers you in your future and your adulthood, and you kind of wonder where it all came from. But I mean, I had a great childhood overall. But again, it was more of the freedom that I had to do so many things that I wanted to do, and nobody really told me that I couldn't do them. So,
Yeah,
and again,
yeah,
as you grow older, that discipline that children really should have is when I said to myself, I wish I'd had those tools. I wish I'd had those discipline, but I didn't figure that out till I was in my 50s. So it was a
it takes
long
time.
process, but I had a good time in between.
That's the most important thing. Exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
And it's all a continual process. Um,
exactly. Continue.
what do you think is the biggest burden on mental health in society today? It's the 10-year anniversary of Underbrax, and we've relaunched with the classic white pair. We've also got new styles coming out super soon. We're donating $1 from every pair to mental health, currently to 1 in 5. You can find all of this at www.underbrax.com.
I think the biggest burden is that nobody talks about it. I think that's a burden for a lot of people. Everybody talks about going out and working out and go walking and do all these things, but as soon as you say something like, "Well, my mind is not feeling as well as it should," or "I feel a little off today," or "I feel a little depressed," it's like people kind of step back and back up. So I think it's so important that we really make it normal and make it part of everyday life, that just as like I said, mind fitness for the brain as much as mind is body fitness for the body.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's such a good point, and exactly, it needs to be seen in exactly the same light. And I think because it's not a tangible thing, it's quite difficult for people to understand that sometimes. But it really does. It needs to get to that point where there's just no difference there. There,
Well,
we know
y-
how important it
y-
is.
yeah, the only thing I would say to that is that I think that everybody does know how important it is, but they're frightened to say anything
It's a
because
good
they
point.
know in their own mental self what the problems are, you know,
Yeah,
but even they're scared to say anything. So it's really normalizing it, so that it's an everyday, it's not a problem, but and not making it sound so scary that
hmm,
we can work it. We can help it. It's like anything. Somebody can be 500 pounds or somebody can have really major depression. But overall, we can help everybody. Everybody can help each other. And a lot of that is being kind and being acknowledging other people.
yeah. It's such so well said. Uh, what's your personal definition of happiness?
Peace. I think I said it before. My personal feeling of happiness is just peace, being comfortable, doing what I want to do, but what I just going to bed at night and just feeling very peaceful. That I did everything I possibly could, along with my producer. She makes me happy too.
Producers, yeah, producers always make you happy. um, yeah, but peace, that's the thing. I think we're taught um, the wrong sort of view of what happiness means. It's not buying that Mercedes or whatever. Acquiring all these different things. It's finding that peace of mind. Being at peace, being able to go to bed and feel at peace. Uh,
Right.
so two more to go here.
Okay.
What are you most afraid of?
Wow, that's a good one. What am I most afraid of? I will say I'm not afraid of it anymore, but I was afraid of it, and it almost happened. I was always afraid of being a bag lady. It sounds crazy, but I almost turned into a bag lady because my mind was always on this negative, and so it's like it was manifesting itself, where I was
Mm,
broken and had no money basically, and that's I think what woke me up is like, oh my God, I'm one step away from being a push in the cart. And that terrified me. And so it doesn't terrify me anymore so much, but that's something that did terrify me. Um, I don't get terrified as much like I did because I'm not afraid of dying. I'm not afraid of any of that. But I was paralyzed thinking I was going to be a bag lady. So that was what my scary point was. But I stopped it.
yeah,
Not anymore.
you stopped that one exactly. Well, I'm still terrified of dying. I need to get better at that one. but that's scary.
You need to get
I
better
don't
at
want
it.
to die.
The circle of
I
life.
want to keep living.
We all,
Yeah,
but you'll probably come back in some other form, at some basis. So, but in the meantime, you just got to enjoy the between the dashes, or enjoy the dash between the numbers.
we can't control it, so we've got to enjoy
Can't control it.
what we
That's right.
can. Yeah.
It's out of your control. And so otherwise
And
that'll really stifle you.
exactly, and I might come back as a cat. You never know. So
You might, and if you come back as my cat, you'll be treated really well.
perfect. I hope so. Let's pray for that. So final one. What are you most proud of?
I am very proud of what I've become today. I am very proud of what I've done with my life in the last 12 years, 13 years. I'm really proud of how I'm reacting to people and how I react to myself. I'm really proud of myself. And 12, 15 years ago, I wouldn't say that. I'm very
Amazing.
proud of myself of how far I've come. And
I love, yeah.
And how far I've come, and I don't compare myself to anybody. It's people who think I'm a little crazy. And just a quick side note, I actually live on my boat when I'm in the Seattle, Washington area that I'm renovating. So you're seeing me on my boat, and my cat and I live here when we're on, and I'm renovating it. And everybody else would just think I'm a nutcase, crazy. And I'm like, I'm happy. I'm proud of what I do. I'm proud of where I'm at.
Well, I think that's the opposite of being crazy. That sounds amazing. That sounds incredible. And that area is so beautiful. So I've been in New York at the moment, but I was living in Vancouver in Canada for 2 years, and that region, and I fell in love with it. That whole Pacific Northwest, Seattle, Vancouver, it is so beautiful. I just love it, and I think that's where I want to get back to at some point, because it's just
now you have a friend. You have a friend in the area, so there you go.
I might have to go get my own boat and just live in that area. It sounds good.
It's nothing better than waking up to a condo on the lake is what I call it.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Actually on the water. I'm actually in the ocean. I'm actually in saltwater. So it's called Shilshow. It's in the Seattle area. So I'm in saltwater.
Oh my God. That is so cool. Like, I don't know how people could think that's crazy in a good way. It's like how I would love that. That's like the ultimate.
It's like living in a tiny house. And some people, some of my friends that have come here, they're like, I could never do this. And I'm like, well, you don't have to.
Exactly. But it sounds incredible.
It is. No, I love that.
I love it. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. No, thank you for sharing all of that. And finally, just before I forget, for our listeners, and we'll put this in the notes when we release the episode, but where can people go to find out more about you?
The easiest place is my website, patricialove.com, or please go to Instagram, Coach Patricia Love, and follow me. I'd love to connect.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for making the time. I'm going to come visit you on your boat when I'm next down in that area. And I love this chat. Really, really love everything you're doing. And thanks, again, for making the time.
Oh, thank you very much for the opportunity, Nick. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Thanks to Patricia Love for joining me today for Move Your Mind. If you'd like to learn more, you can go to moveyourmind.me, or you can purchase the Move Your Mind book at nickbracks.com/book.